Hello, everyone, and welcome to the premiere show of altPOV.radio. I'm your host, Jack Roth, and we are going to be doing weekly podcasts with some very interesting people. And I want to encourage listeners, as you listen to this show, to ask questions and challenge conventional wisdom. This is what this show is all about. And I'm fascinated by the allure of unsolved mysteries, and I'm going to be featuring guests who are going to educate, entertain, and enlighten you. And we are going to pre-record a lot of these shows, but they will be available every Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, starting this Friday, May 16th. There will be weekly podcasts, and they'll be available for video viewing or as downloadable audio files, just so you all know. So speaking of someone who is going to educate, entertain, and enlighten, I want to welcome our first guest ever on this show, Peter Maxwell Slattery. Hi, Peter. How are you?
Good, mate. Yourself?
Thanks for joining us. I'll just give people a little bit of a background. Pete is Australian, and he's from Australia, and he's an experiencer, author, speaker, and meditation teacher. His UFO paranormal experiences started at an early age and continue to this day. Multiple people have been witness to these strange events, and Peter has accumulated an overwhelming amount of evidence, both photographic and video, of UFOs, orbs, apparitions over the years. As a result of his experience with extraterrestrials, interdimensional beings, spirits, and what some would refer to as source, Peter has dedicated himself to the healing of the earth and to the awakening of the human race by helping people find their own connection to source, as well as their own interdimensional self. He also helps people to initiate contact on whatever level they are ready to do so, individually and in a group, through love, good intent, and meditation. Pete will be moving to Agnes Water in Queensland in the next few weeks to work with a team of individuals to open a center called the Awakening Center, where Pete and others will conduct contact sessions, meditation workshops, contact workshops, and healing sessions. Pete has also written several books, including The History of Man, My Awakening Part 2, Operation Starseed, and the soon-to-be-released Breaking Free. Welcome, Peter. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Cheers.
I think we should tell people that I'm on the East Coast of the United States, so it's a little after 9 o'clock. But for you, it's a little after 11 a.m. Thursday. I'm sorry.
11, yeah. 10 past 11 on Thursday, yeah. Yeah, it's the 15th of the 5th here at the moment, so we're about, a day ahead, sort of. Well, yeah,
cool.
At the moment, so we're a day ahead.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for being with us. Why don't we start out? Tell people a little bit about your background, how these experiences started for you, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. I'm 30 years old now. The experiences got intense about 2010, but they started really when I was a child, but it wasn't until later when you start looking at things in a different way where you realise things had been going, longer. Just an average person, primary school, high school. I was in a lot of bands during my teenage years as a drummer and singer and guitarist in other bands. I moved to Melbourne for a few years, and I was in Wollongong for a little bit and other places to Gold Coast, pursuing my rap career. When I did that, I did 14 albums under the name P-Max, which all that can be seen at p-maxmusic.com. And that's what I was really focusing on for a lot of my years after high school. I did cleaning as a job on and off wherever I moved, and also in the later years I started to work at an accountancy firm doing a business management Cert 3 certificate, which I completed. A little bit before that was when stuff started, so my first sighting was in 1995 when I was 12 years old. And that was here in Lavington. And where I'm based at the moment before I go to Queensland, like right now where I'm based and where I grew up, is a city called Albury. And I live in the suburb of Lavington. There's probably, these days, there's about 40,000 people here, and then Wodonga is over the other side of the border. So I'm in New South Wales, which is on the Murray River, which is a big main river here, and just underneath that's Victoria. These days there's about 40,000 people on each side of the border, but back then there's, I'm not sure how many, maybe 15,000, something like that, back when I was younger. But between the ages of 8 and 12 I lived with my mum, and when I hit 12 I started living with my father. And one day I went down to go and get, a slushy, like a slush puppy. And I had one of those bottles that change colour when you put the drink into it. So that was sort of a cool thing back in the day. So it was in the summer and it was pretty hot, so I thought I'll go and get one of them. And I got onto this road called Dick Road, which is just off the road that my dad lived on. I started walking up that, and in my right, in front of Red Light Hill, which is a big hill here, and it's got antennas, towers with red lights on them. That's why it's actually called Red Light Hill. And there's a quartz quarry there, and I've actually had later experiences there. But this object, and I was telling you yesterday, when you do weights, the weight on the end of the bar, if you pull one of them off and put it sideways, it looked like that. But it was like a dark, dull, matte grey. And this thing was about 3 times the size of a football field, and I'm talking like AFL football field. This thing was huge. Never heard of anybody else seeing it, though there has been, I remember in the 90s, in later years, being told about a lot of sightings in Albury as well. And since being known, I've had police officers, school teachers, truck drivers, all people from all walks of life tell me about experiences interacting with beings and also seeing crafts around the area. So, yeah, I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and it just went past until out of view in front of the hill, like to my left, houses and that, so, would have continued on further, I suspect. I didn't see it, but it was sort of, got blocked out at a certain stage by the buildings on my left. So I tripped out off that. I didn't tell anybody about that. I don't know why. I just didn't think of telling anybody, but I was dumbfounded by what I had seen. I was sort of, did I really see it? And I'm a young kid, so, the other thing is too, I was a hyperactive kid. And later I've thought, maybe if I did tell somebody, they'll just think I'm full of crap anyway. But I can't remember the actual frame of mind I had at the time thinking about that. But what happened was later on in 2004, like actually between that sighting and 2004, so we're talking about a 9-year period, I did have paranormal experiences, I'd say, with what's commonly referred to as shadow men. So there was one place I worked where I'd see this activity all the time, and I got told that the place was haunted, but it sort of confirmed stuff later on, because I would see even an apparition run down the stairs and fade out, and I found out that somebody slipped and cracked their head on the stairs and died. And there used to be coughing from the toilets, and somebody died from an asthma attack, but I would also see a shadow man in that area as well. And the boss actually told me about this, and I just I didn't blow it off, but I didn't think much of it. I thought with what I'd seen when I was younger, anything's possible. So, but then, later on, stuff was confirmed, and I had sort of other experiences at other places. But 2004, I was driving back with a mate to my place, and the boys were at my place waiting there. And it was actually just a block away from where I am now. My brother lives on the actual street with what I'm about to tell you, and we got down near the end of the road, and there was this white light. It would have been in the afternoon, 4 in the afternoon, something like that. Clear day, not a cloud in the sky, and this object was just moving around doing crazy manoeuvres. And I pulled up, me and my mate got out, and then another 2 or 3 cars, I can't remember, they pulled up too, and everyone's sort of standing on the sidewalk watching this, and we're actually next to Prime TV. And now I'm thinking, it would have been just awesome to go and knock on the door, but we just weren't thinking. So we went back to my place after some time, after that happened, and everyone was there, and I can remember just telling everyone what had happened. And then my brother told me that around the same time he had a sighting, and then I ended up telling him about my sighting back in 1995, because it was a totally different thing. Things sort of chilled down for a bit. Then 2010, in that time, I'd been continuing with my rap career, had moved places and then came back. I think maybe around 2008, 2009, and then 2010, in this room that I'm sitting now, I was at the front door, and it's what I call thought transfer, because I was saying to you yesterday how over time I was wondering how I knew to go outside and the crafts were there. But I went to the front door, and there was this light over here, and the footage is up of that. It was the same as what I saw in 2004, and it was on sundown, and it was coming across just this. It would have been the size of a 2-story house, just a beautiful golden, whitish orange lights, completely silent. And there was other sightings where my friend would go to the door and then, say, it's back. Or sometime, I'm not sure if the first time it was him that saw it, but there'll be times I'll go to the door and go, look at this as well. So that happened 6 times in 2 weeks. And there was one time I went outside and there's a craft sitting there and then it shoots off. So I had infrared cameras and stuff at the time because I was taking UFO reports in the area, and I had investigators for the truth where I'd go to people's places with a couple of other people and we would investigate the paranormal. So because for some reason at the time I was just wondering what I'd seen, I've been left with questions, wanting answers for what I was seeing, not just UFO-wise but paranormal-wise too.
Right.
So it went to 2011, and then I started having more daytime sightings, and stuff would just start to get weird, just high strangeness activity. I was starting to see orbs. There was one time I think it was 2011, I was meant to meet my brother at my mum's house, and he was living an hour out of town, which I had a sighting with going out to see him one time too, and he was coming into town to have dinner with mum, or he was going to stay there, and I went outside for a cigarette at the time, which, isn't healthy, but I went outside and for some reason I left an infrared camera pointing up in the sky on record. I don't know why. And I can remember seeing an orb, and then I woke up the next day inside. This red orb is coming over like that, and then all of a sudden it's the next day and I'm on the couch inside and I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I remember having the camera, and I went and got the camera, and when you look at the footage it's in colour, but it's an infrared camera. And it's a red orb in it, and about a year after that, when I went to go and do a talk for a presentation setting up the footage, I could see that there was what I believe is a craft blinking in and out above the red orb, pointing up into the sky. So all that sort of stuff happened. I was accumulating a lot of evidence too. People were seeing this, were witnessing this with me, but there's some evidence that got lost because 3 brand new computers in a few months got completely wiped. Okay. And I'd even take it to the computer specialist, and they couldn't do recovery on them. It was just, the motherboard was just stuffed in it. So,
well, let me ask you. At this point, when all this high strangeness starts to occur on a regular basis, what was your reaction to this at first? Were you concerned? Were you afraid? Were you curious? I mean, what did you think of all this at the time?
It was sort of just, sometimes you couldn't believe what you're seeing, and sometimes you'd sort of almost have anxiety attacks because you haven't got anything you can reference what you're seeing to. It's just one of those things, and you didn't know who to talk to, and then you're thinking your family thinks you're going nuts, and you think you're going nuts, and you sort of just start looking at things in a different light. You start to, I don't know, even I'd start to feel what people were feeling. Weird stuff like that, but, it was a hard time, and it was a hard time for a few years because I was contacting people and nobody was getting back to me. And then those same people years later wanted to be part of my case. And that pissed me, because I got well known around the country and even around the world, and I didn't ask for that, it just sort of happened because in 2010 with those sightings, the local news covered that, and then I was on an international morning news show here later after that, and it was people coming out of the woodworks wanting to help me, and it's the same people that didn't want to, weren't answering back, whatever. And in that time, I learned to find comfort and support within me because I had I couldn't get it from anyone else. I was losing friends over this.
Right.
And I'm lucky that my 2 best mates are still my 2 best mates. One of them has witnessed something, the other one hasn't. The one that has witnessed a lot of that stuff in 2010 later had sightings himself.
But but it changes your life. I mean, even, you know, I'm speaking to you now. Obviously, you've embraced this, and you've chosen to make this something positive. Obviously, and it is a positive.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, keep going.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. Like the hardest thing for me later on, especially when you're interacting with these beings, was that you basically learn that everything you know is wrong. Like history and the media and everything, and I had to go back and re-educate myself just on the basic things in life and what we think we know. And, you know, it's like you're living in this reality, and a lot of stuff that people know is not real, and I don't even have the answers to what is real, but you just know that something's not right, and that was a hard thing. That's probably the hardest thing for me, was learning that a lot of stuff is just completely wrong. People don't question things, think about things, you know. That was hard too, but soon enough, you know, you just get on with it. There's nothing else you can do. You've just got to get on with it, because it doesn't change. If anything, it gets more intense.
Right.
So, yeah.
Now, at what point did you realize that you were being abducted? At what point did you realize that these encounters were not just of the first and second kind, not that you were just seeing things, but that there was actually interaction? When did you realize that this was happening?
Over time, when I needed to go outside and see the crafts. That spoke, because it happened too much, and I'm going, this is too much of a coincidence that I knew they would be out there and they're there. Whether it's daytime, nighttime, whatever, I just thought, you know, that's too weird. Now, I was getting taken in 2010, I learnt later on, and it explained with a lot of marks and that, but I just didn't have any recollection of it. Apparently there was government involvement, which I had projected later to me with the beings I'm about to mention, because where it really started was in 2011. I had an experience in this room and most of my interactions, I was saying to you yesterday, have been in the daytime, you know, like consciously. So, but this light blue light being appeared, and it had like eyes, a nose, a mouth, a face, arms, legs, didn't have any private parts, and it was a liquid blue light, beautiful light. You know, it was sort of like this white shimmery effect around it. And it appeared for probably half a minute, 40 seconds, something like that. And I can remember just not believing what I'm seeing. There was no thought transfer or telepathy. There was nothing. It was just there. And then it just blinked out like in a movie, and that's how it appeared too. But I was blissed out by it. It was like I had 1,000 ecstasy tablets. I was just like, I can remember that feeling. It was just love, but like unbounded love from whatever this was. And then I later found out that was the Elohim, which is where, you know, similar to Stan Romanek's experiences, where later that had happened to him. Right. Having those types of experiences, which is also similar to him, is how I said to you, after the experiences got to a certain point, you start remembering stuff earlier on. So between the ages of 8 and 12, I can remember waking up in my bedroom, and I can remember this clear as day, and I don't even know why I didn't think about it during the teenage years or even when I started having the sightings, but I'd wake up and there was a curtain on my right, and I'd sort of be on my side, you know, waking up, and there would be this light going around the edge of the curtains. Now, I don't know if there was a craft out there, if it was early sun, because the sun would shine first thing there in the morning, and then I'd turn around, and there'd be like a grey, but it's like a whitish ash colour, sort of like elephant bloody skin on it, wrinkly, weird, big black eyes, and I would just freak out, put the sheets over my head and turn over. There was other times too, which I hadn't talked about up to this point, but it's in the regression. I would see Kurt Cobain in my room, the singer of Nirvana, and that shit just didn't add up. You know, and even now I can remember thinking about it. Sometimes it would be like I'd see him with big black eyes in it as well, sort of like as if both of them were a hologram, and you could sort of see both at the same time. But if you focused at one thing, you'd see that, and then you'd see the eyes. You wouldn't see grey, but the eyes. Right. And just to clarify, I just wanted to clarify for the listeners, and you weren't doing drugs at the time or hallucinating from something you were taking. Yeah, right. It was between 8 and 12, yeah. So I can't tell you the exact time, but when we moved to this house was when I was 8, and I left my mum's house when I was 12 to move with my dad. So I've nailed it down to that time frame because it was in that house. So it could have been 8, 9, 10 or 11, but it's somewhere in there because that's all I can pin back, you know. But that's really when I thought, you know, the interaction has started, or there was an interaction with the Elohim at that time. But about a month after that, this other being appeared. And it was during the day again. I was on the couch, which was over to my left here. It was a 3-seater couch, and I had this coffee table, which this is sitting on now. And a lady sort of appeared bent over with her hands on her knees, staring in my face. And out of nothing like that. And she had big blue eyes, almost wraparound, and blondish wavy hair. And she sort of had like a skivvy type thing on it. From here up was black, but from there down had all squares and circles and pyramids on it, on top of the fabric, and they were in different colours, like yellows and blues and reds. And looking at it was sort of like wetsuit material, but different. And I can remember just going like this, just, you know, because I can't explain how sometimes when, like, and I was looking at this spot in the room, and you can't explain it. It's literally like as if in this reality, there's, you know, imagine it as a movie projection. In one frame, bang, they're in. There's no knocking on the door, walking through the walls, you know, or, you know, sometimes it will be like with the greys. I'm getting further ahead, but, you know, they'll poke around the walls and stuff in the house. This was just totally unexpected. Now, after composing myself, I found out that her name was Shiji and that she's from the Pleiades, but she wouldn't say where from at the time. Months later, I had a lot of interactions, and these would start to be by what I call thought transfer. There'll be times she would tell me she's outside, and I'll go out and there'll be a craft there. Later on, but I saw her in her actual form, which is it's a white light about my height. And it's almost like crystal because there's sort of ridges on it. But there's no arms or legs, it's just a white light. Like a bloody crystal that's a shape and size of a human, but it's a light. But her name's not even Shiji. It was giving me a reference at the time, but it was like I knew this being. There was like a love and giddiness to it. Like sense of humour, sort of weird stuff going on. She's basically just telling me I didn't know who I am and what I am, and, you know, that continued on over the months. A lot of that's in My Awakening Part 2. And then later on she said that she's an ethereal being from the star Merope and the Pleiades, so she's from a star. This is where I still have trouble comprehending that, but I knew she said that in the beginning and appeared in original form. I would have just thought I've lost it and gone to, you know, a mental asylum or some shit. So, you know, It's very...
So it kind of happened in a way. It kind of happened in stages for you, because I just want to clarify for the listeners, because, you know, a lot of the things you're saying are not necessarily unique to you or to experiencers. Now, every experiencer has obviously their own unique experiences, but there's a lot of corroborative information in there. And I just want to tell the listeners and the viewers that you were very, very thorough about documenting as much as you could. And you did put together a documentary, and we can talk about that more later, and we could tell people where they can see it. You put together a documentary, and I watched the documentary a couple of nights ago, and I can't say that a lot of the footage and a lot of the orbs and the glowing lights, some of that, I tend to differentiate between the two, and a lot of the different things that were happening to you were familiar to me because of the work that we had done in the Stan Romanek case. And again, just to clarify, our production company, J3 Films, just finished the documentary for Extraordinary, the Stan Romanek story. So what was fascinating when we heard about you is that a lot of the same things, and you drew a lot of pictures of some of the beings that you saw, and Stan did too. And I cannot believe the similarities in some of these these beings that you saw, that he saw. And again, I'm not trying to, your experience is unique to you, but a lot of the specific, or should I say, a lot of the yeah, exactly, they do. And let me ask you, at the time, again, 2010, 2011, did you think that, oh my gosh, I'm the only person in the world that's experiencing this, or did you think, you know what, this must be happening to other people?
Yeah, I did think this was happening to other people. I'd sort of watch docos every now and then trying to find something similar, but I couldn't. And I tried to stay, once the activity even started, because I was more interested in the crafts at the time, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's sooner than later, thinking-wise, it progresses the way it is, and you can't deny what's going on. But I would talk to some people, and they'd be having the high strangeness to crafts. What was different with me is that the interaction side was a lot more, it was conscious, it was more physical, because this lady, when she appeared, I could grab her. It was physical, like if you were sitting in my room right now. So, and a lot of the time, daytime, and other people have seen this in my house now too. Beings appear in the day. So it's not, and I won't say anything, I won't lead them on about what they look like. A lot of the time I'll keep details about Shiji and even the other beings out of it, so when they do see them, that there's little things that they would know if they saw it, where if they hadn't seen it, they would not know it. So, but there is a lot of overlap. Like these brown greys I see, the brown greys are sort of wrinkly, and they're like a dark brown, and they've got black round eyes, but a big head like that. And I remember waking up one night, and it sounded like something was walking out of my room. So I've got up, came out, flicked on the bedroom light, came out, and standing about 2.5 metres away from me now was the back of something. And I shit myself, and I ran back in the room and slammed the door and held it shut. And over, I don't know how much time, I sort of just got pissed off. I had because I'm like, what's going on? I want to find out what's going on. But it was weird. It was like I was freaking out, then I got pissed off. And I came back out, and I went through all the rooms in my house, and nothing was here. But I know what I saw. Later that, I stayed up the rest of the night, and later that day, I'm having a coffee, sitting down at the coffee table on the couch when it was over there, because I'm moving everything sort of everywhere. And I just rubbed my leg, and there was a scoop mark there. And when I'm looking at it, it didn't hurt, it's perfectly circular, and then all of a sudden I had a memory of seeing something in this place, and everything was like a whitish blue light. And I remember being up against the wall, but I can't remember anything else, but I could visualise what I saw, and then it clicked that whatever was in here was that. So I haven't had many abduction type experiences. I'd say mine are more experiences, because the abduction sort of thing happened after the contact with what I'm telling you about, so it's sort of backwards, although I think a lot of that happened, but I had no recollection. Right. There was another time where my brother was here late, and he actually came around to talk about how I was doing, because I was stressed out with everything going on. And probably around 11 o'clock he left, because he had to go to work, and went in the bedroom and flicked off the light. And I keep the blinds open so I can see stuff moving around. And people, if they come and visit me, they'll see me sitting in the dark at night with the telly off, and you'll see stuff going on. But I went to bed, laid down, put the doona over me, and I just didn't feel alone. So I sat up a little bit, and I had this fake bamboo plant that I could see in the lounge room from my bedroom. And there was something blocking it out, and then I realised there was another something about kid height. And a few seconds later, they've walked in, and the one on my right was closest, and then next second is daytime, the sun's shining through the blinds, and I'm upside down on the bed. So I can't tell you what colour they were, but their eyes were a lot different. They were a lot bigger and wraparound than the other thing, and they were shorter. The other thing would have been 4.5 foot. So that's where, there's different types of interactions, but later I found out like what the light blue light being was, which I referred, and I was approached by two of them in my office, or was my office at the time. There was like a meditation room, and one of them stepped forward and said, "We're Elohim. It's okay. Don't fear." Now, straight after that happened, I woke up on the couch here in a different room, and the remotes were all lined up in a line, and I got a thought to go outside, and there was a craft over my house. And that's when I was like, what the hell has just happened? But I found out what they were. And see, me and Stan were talking, I'd communicated with him, and he told me to keep in contact with Lisa, which I did. Before his book even came out about what these things were, or even any light blue being he was seeing, I had emailed him about this, and I don't know why I did, but I had to tell him. I only found out about him because my brother gave me his book, and I started reading that, and I was like, this is some trippy stuff. This is a lot of similar stuff. Everything up until last year, everything's been documented from 2010, and I mean, there's so much documentation, it's just ridiculous. Where dates, times, as soon as I can get to the closest time I know, I'll say it was around this time, it was on this date. If there's witnesses, if there's photographic or video evidence, I snapshot it or put the photo into the book. So that's one of those things with everything. Like, I've tried to document it the best that I can, but there's things that go by, but what can you do about it? But not everyone, but a lot of people are experiencing what I've experienced. But with it comes like an awakening. For some reason, I started to do remote viewing and meditation around the same time, and that activated different things. Now, what's happened in those states was like the experiences I was having, but I thought it was my mind just making up stuff. And then I found out later on, there's something to this.
Right.
The interdimensional aspect that comes from this, because from the information I've got is that this is where it gets tricky. But what the Pleiadian has shown me with images in my head at the same time, like I said to you, I don't know if these dudes were talking crap, but what I worked out now is what you do is you go from the fruit, from the experience that comes from it. So if it's positiveness, you open up more, I see it as good. If not, I chuck that in another basket, because I've had experiences with reptilians and other beings, which I don't think the reptilians are bad. I think they're actually being overshadowed by something which I would say is the Archon network, from what these cat beings from Sirius had showed me. So this is where it's got a lot more complicated, but like it's been shown to me, like in the beginning there was this huge orb, and we'll say half the size of the universe or something like that. It was big, and there was nothing, and it wanted to experience life and have experience and gain knowledge out of its state, which was like love. It was just light and it was just love. So it exploded itself into zillions and zillions of spirits, at the same time creating all these planes, dimensions and interplanes, and then everything was created within that, the dimensions and the inner planes and the planets and the stars, black holes, everything was created. And those spirits just split up from it. It still kept the core of itself, but the spirits just split up, steal the cell of it, and everything that was in this was part of Source as well, which I call God Source. And these spirits go out through all planes and dimensions to experience life in all forms, whether it's like everything from microbacteria to water to plants to animals, all the way up, because you need to experience those types of lives until you can handle a container like this, unless, which I've worked out as of lately from the same being with information, some beings at this time come directly from Source. But before they come into a human body computer, they have to be basically downloaded in their spirit programs of other people's lives and lives as other things, to have the program to handle the body computer, because they never left Source. So it's a gradual process type thing.
And this is part of the Buddhist and Hindu religion. This has been written, and this is part of that. This is part of that belief system, obviously, that those cultures believe very strongly in. And again, for there's a lot of things that we're talking about here, and you and I, when we first met, we talked about this a little bit. I think that people, and I know you've experienced this, that depending on the person, there are different levels of of the things that they're going to be able to process. So in other words, you have the beginning of, okay, there are strange craft in the sky. Check, I can deal with that. Yeah, there are things out there that we don't understand. Okay, great. Okay, then it's who's piloting these craft? If they are indeed interplanetary. Okay, well there's life on other planets. They're actually coming here. Somehow they have technology that allows them to get here in a reasonable amount of time, and they're here. Okay, so then you have, now we start talking about multiple. You mentioned the Pleiades and the Palladian. Just to clarify again, that's a star system, correct? So that would be from a particular star system?
Yeah, and I don't even think, like I'm talking about it being from a star here, but I've got past life as living just off it, but I wonder if it's a future life, because I don't even think life could even be supported around there, because it's a young star system from my understanding. So this is where time doesn't exist in all this, and this is where it gets to the nitty-gritty stuff, because, you know, we're multidimensional. That's what we are. We're multidimensional beings, and we've got different aspects of ourselves, and actually humans are pretty special in that thing. I know that we can do things that some of these beings can't, and they're like, if only you knew what you're capable of. Right. So, but the reincarnation...
And we've heard that before, Pete, I'm sorry, because we've heard this before from in our research with Stan and some of the other research that I've done, that this message that people receive or they're downloaded with is just that, is that humans, we don't understand our true capacity. We don't really understand who we are. And I think, again, I want to get back for a second before we go forward. You know, again, you have interplanetary beings, but there's also an interdimensional element to this, and the more research you do, the more you find that this tends to be the case. There's some kind of an interdimensional element to this, these beings phasing in and out of dimensions.
Yeah, we talked about that yesterday. Yeah. Yeah,
and if you could, so and the reason I don't mean to interrupt, but I think it's important for the listeners to understand that it's really not. It's not simple for us to understand. It's based on our paradigm and our belief system. It's difficult for us to understand things that we're just not there yet in most cases. Okay, our quantum physicists can talk about these things a little bit, but we're really not at the point where, oh, absolutely, we're capable of the same thing. We're capable of warping space and time. We're capable of phasing in and out dimensionally. We are capable of this, but we don't know we are, or we're not there yet. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, I know that your story is amazing, but I want to keep the listeners and the viewers to make sure that they're absorbing this, and that they're kind of, you know, taking this in a way that it's step by step. So they're not like, whoa, wait a minute, what is he talking about? It all makes sense, but it almost has to be absorbed a little bit at a time. Does that make sense?
It does, and that's why I deal with a lot of experiences, because of where I'm at. It's like I can't do that, but you know, I've got to do that because to make sure people get it. But like yesterday, we were talking about we take ghosts for example, and then abductions or high strangeness. There was a lot of places I went to where I realised people weren't having haunted activity; it was something else. And then you would hear other stuff at night time, but the mechanism that any of these beings use, whether interdimensional, extraterrestrial, ghosts, whatever, they all use the same mechanism to phase in and phase out. You know, you get the same stuff, objects moving, seeing apparitions like this sort of smoky haze stuff, or distortion in air when you're looking at it, you can see like an apparition. But this is what I was saying yesterday, that it's not just ET. ET is such a small part of what's going on, because from what I've experienced, you got time travellers, you got beings underneath the earth, which the beings I interacted with, which were reptilian, they were in this dimension under the earth. You've got the beings living in inner planes between the dimensions, and then you've got beings from other dimensions. You got source, and I've experienced stuff that I can't even fathom to put into words in the human body, that I just can't explain what I've seen. So you've got all these different planes of existence that exist, and this is where it is complicated. Like I said to you yesterday, I believe that we actually know everything in between lives. I think it's just because we're unbounded, we're free from the body computer. But what we're dealing with is so complicated, but everything is being affected right now. Everything's being affected by what happens here. We've got karma, but people don't realise that you can break karma. So a lot of the beings here have had to reincarnate because their higher self thinks that's what they've got to do, but they don't know they can break that system. And what's happened is screwing up the rest of the process in the universe with the shift. Because there's, people know about the shift. The shift is where we all evolve. And I used to think the shift was just for humanity. And in a sense it is. But it's actually for all beings throughout all planes. Because and not everyone's going to go to where they've got to go. Some have got to stay. And they've got to stay because it's not their time. In a sense that you go where you're ready to evolve to. But there's this trapping at the moment. And we're sort of at the core of it. And by universal law, they can't just jump in and do whatever they could. Because it's got to be, humanity's got to do this themselves, and the other beings have got to do their self as well, but we've sort of got to work together, and that's where beings have had to reincarnate back down and help from the inside out by playing a part in humanity. At the same time, you've got manipulation going on, but the manipulation we have allowed to happen. And I think we let it happen because it was meant to happen, so we could do what we've got to do when the time is right, because there's got to be a balance between spirituality and technology. And I believe when we've got that balance, all the shit with the wormholes and physics and technology, that will come into play because we'll be spiritually in line with it. Until that time, we're going to have what's going on keep going on. And I've had black ops experiences. I was telling you yesterday, the black helicopters flying around, people have seen that. Grey stealth helicopters that have look like it's made out of one piece of metal. I've had these white vans, like recently, a white van that looked like a Hummer van. I don't even think it was a Hummer. With like this chrome grille going around the entire thing. There was no doors on the thing. And there was a satellite dish on top. So there's and I've had military interact with me and call me, telling me everything's going to be all right, like one bloke, and then all of a sudden I stopped having technical difficulty with the computers and everything sort of went all right after then. And who knows what's going on with that, but there are some elements that do know what's going on, but I don't think they know what's going on. I think they've got a little bit of knowledge of something just like me, because I don't know 0.00001 out of 1% out of 1,000% of what's going on, but I know a lot more than the average person because I've had these experiences and interactions. But this is where intuition kicks in, and over time you can learn to deal with that. But what's going on is so big, where my experiences have led me with what's going on. But this is just something that, talking about, it's actually like therapy for me talking to you now, because I interview a lot of people, as you know, and I talk to them behind the scenes like we talked yesterday. But when you look at it on the whole gamut, there's so much to it. Like the books, like I said to you, were easy because all I'm doing is documenting the experience and then telling you about it. And what I've worked out is I'll get on the third book and I'll go, hey, this happened in book one. And, I'll find connections. Because there's a lot of connections, but the thing that people need to be aware of, even if they don't believe it, is just when they're listening to people like me or others, they've got to be aware of the interdimensional aspects. Like I was talking about you, like with my other self in Orion. Now that's something I don't get. I understand if people just don't get. Do you want me to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, let's do that. But I wanted to ask you. I wanted to go back because you mentioned that the intervention, with perhaps government. We're not quite sure, but it's probably a human intervention. How much of that have you had, and has any been threatening, or has it just been more monitoring?
There's monitoring, stuff going missing. I would say, I can't tell, like I get death threats and weird phone calls and that too, but unless they tell me who they are, it could be anyone.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It could just be, right.
I get a lot of that, and that doesn't bother me. I just don't, it pisses you off for a few seconds and you're over it, because it happens so much. When it first started happening, you get pretty upset, and I get enough ridicule from where I live and others in the country after being known. You know, you get hate from church groups and bloody even, you know, all different types. So over time, you sort of get a thick skin.
Because this doesn't fit, what you're talking about doesn't fit into their paradigm. Yeah. So it's very difficult for them to accept. And again, I want to stress that this hasn't been a cakewalk for you. I mean, there was depression, depression, anxiety. You couldn't find work. I mean, there's a lot of negative that comes with this. And you've overcome that, but I don't want people to think that you're just, you know, hey, this was awesome, the whole, you know, this is great. It is, and once you accept it and realize what it is, and realize the bigger picture of what life is, but I think especially at first you go through a lot of it because you're changing, you're going through a paradigm shift, so that's painful.
Yeah, no, that's the main part of it. And what I learned looking back, it wasn't these beings that had done this to me. It was me who's done this to me from how I've been educated. And it's other humans doing this to me, just to people with whatever they want to say in their letters and, you know, whatever's going on. But then, you know, you get to a point where you actually feel sorry for them because they haven't seen what you have seen and they don't understand that. And like people that, you know, they might say I'm a Scientologist and all this shit. It's like Scientology is like what they show on South Park of Scientology. It's a joke. What I'm talking about is so complicated that it far precedes that, and Scientology to me is like South Park, how they've said what they've got to say. So, but when looking at it like this, and I've talked to theologians and people, and they actually, some of them, you know, believe this type of thing's going on, but I say to them, look, if you take my information and you're negative with it, that's you doing that. Because what I'm showing is we don't die. We just go on and on and on. And to me, that is the most beautiful thing. And we can't, like, we're all got the same body, computer body. No matter your skin colour or your size, whatever, we've all got the same body, but we're all different inside. Why? Because we've had different past lives, different experiences, and that's what makes us us. And if everything was easy, it wouldn't be worth doing. Why did we leave Source to go out and experience life in every single form and gain knowledge in every single way? We're all doing it. So this is where, to me, it's a beautiful thing. And, you know, there's no hell, there's no heaven. The closest thing to hell is where we are right now, because we've manifested this reality. But, yeah, like, it wasn't no easy walk, but as I said, it was me that was doing that and the other humans around me. Because, you know, if anything, especially with what Stan's been going through, unless you walk through my shoes or his shoes, you don't know, you can't possibly fathom anything on our part. So even though, you know, what's happened lately and that, you just got to have gratitude and love for people. That's what we need. We need to stop, you know, throw the ego out the window, have gratitude and love, and not just everything's love and light. Love and light is the key, but unless you've had hard times, you can't know possibly what love and light is, you know, when you come out of those hard times. You get a lot of these churchies knocking on your door, and I bet you a lot of them haven't had a hard day in their life. They've all been good upbringing and everything else. I was sexually abused as a kid. I went through a lot of things that I've talked about publicly, and now I look back and, yeah, that type of thing sucked, but now it's made me strong where I am. And fear is what holds humanity back from everything. And like moving to Queensland, people said, what if this and what if that? They're a what if mindset. Right. There's a possibility of something could happen that's wrong. But who cares? As long as you've got love and good intent, you can go about what you want. And if something bad's meant to happen, it was meant to happen. Right. Because there's no such thing as a coincidence, I've learned now. A lot of experiences that don't have the experiences I do, the main thing to look for is synchronicities. You'll be drawn to subjects, and the same person will keep on being brought up. And that's how I go by my life when I'm not getting direct information, whether through meditating or contact. So that's how things have progressed for me. But this is where we've just got to get out of what-if mindset, and people actually stand up for what they believe while still respecting where other people are at. Because where other people are at, they're out there for a reason. So
that's right. And I think the one thing that we've learned in the last 5 years since we got involved in the documentary with Stan Romanek is that there's a lot of venom out there, and I think that people just but it comes from a place of fear. I think, more than anything else. And I always wondered why people would simply debunk without really knowing, or simply debunk without really being firsthand involved in a case, where they haven't really seen the evidence, they haven't collected the evidence, they haven't interviewed the people who, you sit in front of them and they're crying and they're shaken up and they're sincere. And I think that people are afraid of that. They're afraid of things, obviously, that as humans we're afraid of things we don't understand. And I think that's one of the things that we have to, and that's ego, right?
Yeah.
So that's part of the ego. So we have to put that aside and try to, and not project, not be what if. Well, what if this happens if you go there? What if that happens? Well, it's okay because it was all meant to happen then. And I think, one of the things you mentioned to me when we first met, and I found fascinating, and I think that's a big piece of the puzzle. We're evolving, but most of these beings, or if not all of these beings, whether they be extraterrestrial, interdimensional, or both, they're evolving too.
Exactly.
Because I know a lot of people are going to listen to this and say, oh, really, love, really? Because I know a lot of people who really suffer through being abducted and the cattle mutilations and the manipulation and the pain that people go through when they are abducted. And, if you can touch on that a little bit, because I think that's a good point. They might be more evolved, but they're still learning as well. And there are actually some things that human beings have the capacity for that they don't even have the capacity for.
Well, that's the thing. Like, there's a lot being blocked out, and I don't think a lot can be handled in the body computer until we've got a oneness where things change in our makeup as a collective. I know that we're the fourth civilization now. I know that the three before it were unbounded until manipulation came in, which they let happen, and it changed. Once you lose the oneness, you lose abilities, and as a society, you start to crumble. But even just saying with the people having bad times or bad experiences, there's two things that I know one thing that I know to be true from my experiences is that there's beings in the self-service mode, which you would say are negative, and those in the service mode. And I've witnessed both. I've had pretty full-on stuff happen, and that's where these cat beings came in. They were sort of doing energy work on me, pulling out my light body and playing it like a guitar, sort of tuning it. And that was because of the attacks, psychic attacks and negative stuff, shadow man activity. And some of these Dracos can be 8-9 foot and they're in shadow form. I've had experiences with them, which I used to think reptilians were a load of crap. But to me, they're not that bad. I think they're actually being overshadowed. So when you get into that aspect, there are people having what they would say is negative experiences. And then there are those that are having everything's all love and light. It just depends, how you perceive reality through, your lens type of thing. So what was the other part of the question you just asked as well?
Well, it was basically that these beings are evolving as well. So when people talk about them...
definitely. One thing, see, even from how I explained to you the shift, these dudes, some of these dudes in their planes or wherever they're at, they're going to go up too. So there's still mysteries to them. And I think even to Source, there's mysteries to that. Because as I said to you yesterday, I've been outside the universe and I saw other universes. And we're actually inside something else. And that done me head in. I was like, this is too much of, that's just too far. So I think as a source, as one, there's still mysteries to us when we're back at the oneness, but these dudes are still evolving as well. And I think everything is, I think when you go out through all these lives, when you reincarnate, you've just got to, it's about learning. That's the point of it, I've been told and shown. Each single life you're learning and you're gaining knowledge. So even when you're, some people go, 120th Galactic Federation being, from this dimension, whatever, if that existed, you get these dudes out there. And I've had experiences with councils, but nothing like a Galactic Federation. Not to say it doesn't exist, but I just haven't had that experience. But they're still evolving, They've got to evolve. If you knew it all and you could do everything, there would be no use. But that's when you got even these higher beings, almost just out of source. They get to service mode once they almost have done everything they want. And you can go back to source anytime you want, whether through meditation or you die and you go, stuff this, I'm going back to source, I'm done. And you're just in a state of unbounded love the whole time. But these guys don't have all the answers at all. And what they're trying to learn is that we're them and they're us. And, you know, if they wanted us destroyed, it would have happened a long time ago. But even with the negative self-serving ones, they actually need us. Because we're a source of energy.
That gets me right into a question that I definitely wanted to get to. I think we're going to have parts 2 and 3, obviously, of this, if you're okay with coming back, because there's a lot we can talk about. But the self-service part, and something that you've experienced, and that was a big part for me, probably the most fascinating part of Stan Romanek case and other cases. Hybrid children being abducted, doing experiments, obviously with reproductive organs, with male and females at the same time, taking certain DNA and what have you. And then all of a sudden, a couple years later, being contacted by these children who are, for lack of a better term, hybrid. There's an agenda there. There's obviously there's an end game there. There's a reason that's happening. Tell us a little bit about that part of your experience, because it's fascinating.
Yeah. One day there was these kids playing on the front lawn, a boy and a girl, and they were kicking around a red ball, just laughing. No words, so I can remember just they were laughing. And I've got no kids here in this area, so I'm like, you know, this is just strange. And I've got a dirt alleyway just there that anybody can get access in, and then there's a main road there. But I just thought, you know, this is weird. I've been here for years and this just doesn't happen. So I thought I'd sort of be nosy, but not nosy. And I thought I'll go out and check on the car and check under the bonnet, check the water and the oil and all that. And they were kicking the ball and they looked at me. It was like as if I knew them, but I'm just like, oh, you know, didn't think anything. Go and check the car. The windscreen wiper thing needed filling up for the water. So I came back inside, got a bottle, filled that up, walked back out, and they're still laughing. And as soon as I got around the corner, silence. Everything just went like a dead silence. And I walked back, it's like, what the hell? And the kids weren't there. And there's no possible way they could have got to the front. And, we're just talking a split second as I go around the corner, it just went silence. And I just thought that was weird, because it was just like, I don't know, I can't explain it. It was just weird. And later that night I was in here, and I'm just like, I've seen these kids somewhere before. And I've talked to others, and a lot of people don't talk about this type of thing, some do, but it was like a flashback playing in my third eye while I'm still looking, and I had to grab the bloody kitchen desk, like the kitchen table, and I'm looking at these kids, and it was like a flashback memory of physical, and they're on a craft, like I think it's a craft, because it's the same walls, the light blue light, like they actually light the walls. And they're standing in front of me, and the boy's got on like this green satin top, and the girl's got a blue, royal blue type one, and they've got brown hair, and they've got big eyes. And I didn't even notice that. Looking back, I noticed that later on, going, their eyes weren't normal. But what's even weirder when I'm looking, and I even think back now, is that there was, and I've written about this, there was like 2 or 3, I think 3 seats that were metal, and there was no legs to them. But I was thinking that's got to be a projection, because it didn't match the rest of what was in that room. Do you know what I mean? Because everything was light and curved, the corners and everything's curved, but it's all this bluish white light.
Right.
And I was just in tears, and I'm like, I just knew it. And then I even had a voice come in saying that these are your kids. You know, and I was just in tears, like going, what the hell is going on, you know? And then, you know, that was a lot to deal with, and to tell me parents and all that sort of thing, because I had to tell someone, because I was going to go nuts, and I wasn't right. I was very emotional. And it was weird, like, a few months later, I'm driving back from my mum's house, and I'm about to turn this corner, and there's this chick on my left, in her, like, later teenage years, and she's got the big eyes, she had, like, a necklace with something on it, and she's got, like, this tightish brown top, sort of like silky cotton, and tight black pants. And I'm like, that's me daughter. That's the chick that was here. But we're only talking a couple of months, and she's like 10 years older. And so I'm looking at her, and I had to go because there's cars behind me. So I'm looking at, and she's actually walking between me, my car, and I'm looking at her in the rearview mirror, and she's walking between my car and the car behind me. So I go, and then I pull over, like I couldn't pull over straight away because here on some roads, like you got the gutter, this is the gutter, this is the road, and this is the parking area, but you've got things that come out like that and there's a tree in it. So I couldn't park straight away, so I've got past that maybe 20, 30, 50 metres, got out of the car, ran back, and she wasn't there. Now, where she walked to go across the road was a school, and there's nowhere you could go with the fence. It's a huge front lawn. There's just nowhere she could have gone. And then just recently, I'm not sure how many months ago now, I was down at a small petrol station just to grab a few things, and I saw her again. And she walked past me in the supermarket, and as soon as she passed me, like she wasn't there. And I even went up to do the survey going, have you seen a chicken here? Like stressed out, like there's a chicken here. He's like, you're the only bloke in here. Like, nah, there was this chicken here. And I just had tears, just walked out going, you know, like, what, you know, it just plays on my mind. But the other thing is, so there's them too, and they're Orion, them, and I'll get into more of that later on with the Orion side of things, but there was this lady I met on Facebook, and later I come to find out she'd been having dreams of me for years, and she's 42, so she's 12 years older than me, and she never posted anything about aliens or UFOs, anything on her Facebook at that time. She said one day she went to her computer in the morning and my website was already up on the screen. And then one day she said stop it, and she befriended me on Facebook. And then one day she posted that this hasn't happened for years and she's had a crap day. And I thought I'll just text her. And I think I said, you've been abducted, haven't you? I don't know why I said this. There was no reason for me to say it. And she sends me back like a photo, and there's 3 scoop marks in her arm, and I thought of Orion's belt straight away. It was just weird. I don't know why I thought of that. That's what I thought. And then I found out she was picking up her brother from work in the morning in the early hours, and that there was a flash of white light and the cars dropped like a foot onto the ground. There was like no time missing, they thought, and then she's got these marks on her arm. So we got talking, and then for some reason we had to meet. So she come here to Albury, she come to stay, and she stayed the night, and then the next day I said, because she's in the ghost hunting and that too, I said, do you want me to take you to Beechworth, which is about 40 minutes out of town? It's where the famous Ned Kelly bushranger went to jail for a little bit. I don't know if you've heard of Ned Kelly, but he's sort of famous, or the word gets around. And so we went there and I showed her some haunted places I used to investigate, and we just didn't feel right. We thought we were being like watched, but you know, we couldn't see anything. And then we got in the car and I said I was going to take her to Mount Buffalo because there's weird rock formations and stuff up there. And the snow's about an hour away from me, so it snows up there. A lot of people don't think it snows in Australia, but yeah, bloody hope it does. It's been like around 0 degrees this morning. And I'm looking for this bloody turn-off, and I can't find the turn-off. And I'm going, there's a turn-off here, I'll go up it all the time. Because my mum's cabin's at the bottom of Mount Buffalo, so I know that area like the back of my hand. There's no way I could have missed that turn-off. Anyway, after some time we come to another turn-off, which is still part of the road, and we keep going. I'm just like, this is just weird, you know? And then all of a sudden there's this sound, and it's coming from all around us. And the way I describe it, because I got in contact with Mary Rodwell, who I've been mates with for a while. And I'm like, it was like an angel playing a didgeridoo. That's the only way I can describe it. You know, really weird. So that's what happened during the trip. And then I don't know how long this went for, but we just didn't feel right. And then all of a sudden I had to turn down a road that I hadn't been down for years to this lake at Lake Buffalo, but it's not on Mount Buffalo. It's like in an area that you just, you know, I wouldn't even think of going. We got out of the car and a disc popped in and out like that above us. Like we got out, we both automatically looked, and she's like, did you see that? And I'm like, I wasn't going to say anything. Because it was just weird how everything was happening with her. You know, I've had experiences, I'm cool with it, but this just didn't seem right. So we didn't feel right. I came home. Carol ended up going a day or two later. And then contacted Rodwell, told her about what happened, and she goes, and like a lot of people know Mary Rodwell, she's got ACERN, Australian Close Encounter Research Network, sort of like Australia's version of Dolores Cannon. You know, she does a lot of hypnotherapy. She's done, you know, a couple thousand people now, or cases, really respected. And she's, within like a few seconds, she's pulled this file out over Skype. She said, "Does it sound like this, Pete?" And she starts playing it. I'm like, "Yeah, what the hell is it?" And she goes, "This is the sound of a craft that James Gilliland recorded on his ranch." I'm like, "You've got to be kidding me." So what I did was I started sending it to Carol and others without leading on what it was. And Carol texts me back and goes, "Where did you get that? That's exactly what we heard." And I told her. So that led to get my regression done, because I hadn't had I didn't need a regression. I had missing time, but it didn't play on my mind. This played on my mind. Here I am with a chick 12 years older than me. I know her, and I don't know how I know her. All this weird crap's going on. She even saw a couple of greys here in the house on the first night she was here, I think it was. Orbs in the house, the activity just beefed up. And what I recognise is that when you get experiences together, the activity beefs up. But that's what led to get the regression done. And I found out that I was taken on board with 3 kids and Carol, and that they had blondish hair, but and a couple of them had green eyes, and one of them had blue eyes. There was 2 girls, 1 boy. But on this craft, I've been taken on it a few times. The dude looks like E.T. from the movie E.T., but he's brown, dark brown. I had Giles Campbell on the show. I don't know if you've seen that, and he sort of like says he looks like a steaming pile of poo, the ridges and stuff on his skin. But yeah, and he's got round black eyes, so it looks like E.T., dark brown, wrinkly, and yeah, the black eyes, and he's usually got, and I've seen him before, he's cool, like, he's got a sense of humour about him. It's really weird. Sometimes he's got a golden like stick or spear with him, but he's sometimes got a purple or a light brown hooded robe on. And that's the dude that was on the craft. And then, as I think you know, there was not just one being or one race of beings, multiple beings spoke through me through the rest of the regression. And I basically sat here watching me and Rodwell and seeing the beings on my physical body right. And there was 2 groups of Pleiadians. There was the light being Pleiadians, the physical Pleiadians. There was the Elohim. There was the human Orions, which I'm a part of. There was 2 races of brown greys. Then next to them were 2 different races of cat beings from Sirius, and then the light blue light beings from Sirius, very similar to the Elohim, but they're sort of slightly more physical, though they're still light. Then there was these light beings, orange light beings from Andromeda, and then blue dudes under them. And they were all sort, you can see my body on the thing making pauses, and I can remember flashes of it. I can't remember what happened after that point. I can remember going out of body and one of the human Orions turning into a rainbow being saying, "We'll take care of this," and I sort of jumped out. It wasn't channeling, it was in me. And I can, like, when watching it, and I can even remember it happening, it was sort of like getting the go-ahead to answer things from everyone at that, whatever you call it, like. And it's weird, like, I had trouble watching it. I watched it 4 times to do the captions, and that's it. That's it. And that was just hard enough, and my family and those have hard trouble watching it because it's not me. My voice changes, my like mannerisms, just everything's weird, but that's what came from it. So there was more kids, but I'll talk about a trippy experience with that ET looking dude. Like, I've been on a craft with him in a white room, and everything's curved again, and there was like, you know, when you go to the cinema and there's like a cardboard cutout of the poster of the movie? Well, there was a bed there, and a chick that was on the bed that I knew from school that I thought was, you know, pretty, and she was a cardboard cutout too. And I'm laughing with this being, like, he's telling me basically to ram it, you know, have sex with it or whatever, and I'm going, no way, dude. Like, no way, but we're laughing about it. And then I wake up in the morning. Carol had been staying here because when people start, like, everyone sleeps in my bed, I sleep out here. Yeah, that's a long story anyway. But I woke up in the morning and I go in there and she's like, I feel like I've been tampered with. And I'm like, well, you're not going to believe what happened last night. And then I'm telling her that I'm on this craft with this dude and he's telling me to ram this cardboard cutout. And we just laughed about it. You got to laugh about this stuff because
right.
It's just... Right. it's just out there. But I've had a lot of interactions with this dude, and I found out he's Orion as well. But he's sort of like a loner, but I get more blissed out in love for him than the light beings. So a lot of people say light beings are the closest thing to source. Well, I don't know if that's right. It might be, but to me, this ET-looking dude was just awesome. Like the wisdom and knowledge and love and just the bliss feeling you get from it is a trippy thing. But the full regression of mine is up on the internet. I think it's Peter Maxwell Slattery's Regression with Mary Rodwell full. There's one that goes for around an hour, and there's one that goes for 10 minutes, which is sort of like a cut-down version of the last 10 minutes of the regression.
Yeah, and I watched a little of that was in the part that was in your documentary, and what struck me was the fact that your mannerisms change. You change. You're not you anymore. Once you start to channel this being, and again, I have to say, through a lot of the regressions that we not only viewed that were done with Stan Romanek, but also that we were a part of. We did a couple of regressions we're actually present. And it's the same. I'm telling you, he changes. It's not him anymore, and it's a different energy. It's a different.
Did he shake it all before they came into him? Because on my video, you can't see it fully. You can see one of my legs shaking and my chest and everything's. It's weird. You can tell that this isn't normal, but everything's shaking.
Interesting.
And what Rodwell was saying was that. I think Rodwell knows his stuff, but I think how I've interpreted what she said, and it's actually written on the, a lot of it's written on the regression, but from what I understand, their energies were connecting with my energy, and that's what she calls it the champagne effect, because everything's just bubbling and you're shaking like all hell, but it's just like, on the regression, I think you can see me going, oh, just the energy. Like, it was just like orgasm times a million, and you just blissed out going, wow, just loving this energy. But I think I was blocking it out, and then I couldn't.
Right.
And that's when all the stuff just changed. So this Stan shaker...
Yeah, he didn't really shake. What happened with Stan is, all of a sudden his head would get stiff, and he'd start making jerky movements with his head, as if he was looking around the room, but his eyes were shut. So it was almost this inquisitive, back and forth, jerky kind of movements, and you can tell like whatever this was looking at everyone, checking everything out, but Stan's eyes were shut, and the inflection obviously in his voice changed, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but there's a sense of a higher intelligence that comes through. And the way they speak, and a lot of it was trying to come up with words that we use as human beings. They'll try to come up with those words because they can't. They don't speak in that language, right? So it's like there's a lot of how you say. There was a lot of how you say. They would say how you say, and then they would say it, and because they're looking for those words.
That's similar with mine, and what I got from it. As weird as it sounds, I think they're actually scanning my body computer brain to find the words as well. As
exactly.
Weird as that sounds.
That's exactly what it's like.
Everything's thought transfer, and when they're coming in trying to talk to somebody that they're meant to do it through whatever means they want, it's a different ball game. So how that works, I think that's what I can't prove it. A lot of what I say is from experience or what I've been told by the beings, but that's something where. That's just what my intuition is telling me about that. But getting back to the kids, what I understand is that they're basically, while they're doing hybrid, is they're actually taking the human body in some aspect, mixing it with those, but they're bringing like aspects of the humanity into another dimension to live there and be there and partake there and whatever. So, and like, what I'm even understanding now is that they're even mixing us with them and ethereal beings. So it's not like something on our level that's physical. It's like something that's, you'd say is like a light being, then with something else, and then with human. And then, like, I know with some cases they're putting like they need two of us and then one of them. So there's different levels of the program and different beings do it differently. But with my kids, they're to raise other dimensions. And that's what came through in the regression too, is that the kids are raised the other dimensions like I'm meant to raise here by reincarnating down here and playing a part. But the kids are doing it not just on the spiritual aspect, they're doing it on a physical one in that plane as well when they're there.
Interesting.
But I can't say much more because I try not to think about it too much because, you know, I'm okay now. I used to be real emotional about it, but I think if I need to know, I'll know. But
well, do you feel in any ways, do you feel cheated from the standpoint that obviously there's emotion there? These are your children and there is an emotional bond there. Do you feel like you want to get to know them better? You would like to communicate with them more? Do you get that urge?
I do, but then again, like thoughts come in my head like I already do, like as if on another plane I'm interacting with them. And then I've even realised that the other me, Ryan, is taking care of them as well. Right. And I even think, well, I'm just thinking in human emotional terms, and at the same time that even if I could, it would be almost like they love, I think what happens is there's a love component and cuddling component that they may not get up there, but then at the same time, everything else, they're enlightened as hell. To me personally, I think they're enlightened as hell. Like their intelligence is just, you know, their needs are not our needs. And it'll be like saying, bring them back here to Earth, I want them here. They'll come here and they'll be like, this is just screwed up. Earth is screwed, you know. And I don't want kids here. I've got kids, you know, but I don't have physical Earth kids. I've got hybrid kids, but I don't want kids. I don't want a missus. I like to play around, and you know that's me telling the truth. You know, right. A lot of guys wouldn't say that, but that's just the truth. I love everyone. I love women, and you know, yeah.
No,
I just like to be me, not have restrict. And the other thing is too is that I don't think a lot of people could handle this around me. Right. Which I'm moving in with Giles Campbell, who was on my show, and we've got the Awakening Centre happening with Mary Rodwell. But there's a lot of connections with me and Giles, and we'll have experiences like the craft I told you about coming out of the tree, and either landing or going through the ground, and seeing the beings walking around, and we were cool with it. You know, it's like he didn't know exactly what was. He said, "I see this stuff all the time," and I'm like, "These are the dudes." Like how the crafts land on us. They're like a smoky mist, but you walk, like the atmosphere will change, the sound will change, you'll go and walk away, it will go back to normal, and you can see a craft made out of smoke, just sort of shimmering smoke, but it's got definition. And this is where things are led now, is helping others. And I've been doing it for quite some time, having people visiting me from around the country, you know, doing meditation, talking about their experiences, my experiences, finding some commonality, going out, seeing the crafts, which the thought component's got a lot to do with this. Some would call it CE5. I don't have protocols. As long as you've got good intent and love and you're having a good... I noticed that I can be doing some of the most rudest jokes, and this has happened twice now, and they will rock up awesomely. Just when you least expect it. And I was with Alan Ferguson, who works on my case, ufologist Alan Ferguson, and another friend, and I was saying some pretty rude jokes and telling them how this happens when I'm telling jokes. And yeah, we had 10 sightings that night. And they're like, you know, there might be something to it, you know. And I was just like, as long as you've got having a good time, and it's not about seeing the crafts, as I said, you know, if you want to see crafts, forget doing it with me, because it's where you want interaction, whether it's thought transfer, having an experience. It's learning about them, learning about us, and more about the oneness. And you just invite them. That is as simple as that, by thought or by saying it. And you just say, you know, if it's safe to do it, we invite you. If not, you know, don't worry about it, you know. But right. Every time I've done it, something's happened. Whether, you know, sometimes we don't see the crafts, but other things will happen. Okay. So that's where, you know, things go with it.
That's fascinating. Pete, yeah. What's the message here? What should we take away from this? What do you think that... What's the purpose of this? What can your average person who is wanting to learn more about this, who is listening to this or watching this, and trying to absorb it all, which is a lot to absorb, what message should they take away?
I ended in my book, my last book, Operation Starseed, love is the key. It's as simple as that. And if somebody tries to make something complicated, I usually say they're full of it. Because what's going on isn't that even when we get into the interdimensional aspects, time travel, everything else, it really isn't that technical. It's technical if you haven't been exposed to it experience-wise. But it's simple. Love is the key. Love is, even those that are negative and self-serving, them too have got to one day go back to source. And they've too got to experience love. Love is the key, and having gratitude for each other and letting go of the ego and just accepting that you don't know it all. You know, that's the thing, is once we do that, we actually start talking. And when we start talking, we start communicating other ideas without any bias or I've got to be right. And when that shit happens, beautiful things can come from it. We can actually work out some things together as a collective. We've got to keep our individual aspect about ourselves, but also we've got to have that oneness aspect as well. But I don't know what else to say. Like, everything to me comes down to love, like a vibration of love for anything. Like, there's even experiences with the negative beings that I see now, and I just got love for them. I feel sorry for them being in that state and that they've got to do what they've got to do. Right. And they hate that, and they go away because it doesn't resonate with them. But I know that one day they've seen a glimpse of that when I'm thinking that for them, and that's love for them.
Right, and that could be said for the human manipulators as well. You actually feel love for them, that you feel almost bad that they, a lot of people get angry with manipulation, with being manipulated by powers that be. But in the end, really, if you look at it that way, it's they're learning, they're growing, and I think if you send love their way, that it has an effect as well. It's hard for me to even wrap my head around that, but it's true. I think it's true.
No, it is, and it's like when you got bad times in your life, and then a few years later you look back and you go, I wouldn't be here now if that crap didn't happen.
Right.
I think humanity right now, this crap we're going through has to happen for wherever we've got to get to. And this is all already played out. Though we can still, we can create other realities. That's what's special about humans. We can actually create other realities as well. So even though what's happening today, where everyone's at today, there is a final outcome for that. But as we think, new outcomes happen. And this is what I'll get trouble with. I said, because some of these beings are us coming back, and I know that from experience. And I said, well, if they're coming back and this is fixed, why do they still exist? And they said, you think linear. But when you're multidimensional like us, we can actually create reality by thought, other timelines. This is the shit that I ponder on sometimes, because this is what I find fascinating out of the whole gamut. And I think if we get together and just talk about something and share ideas, like I was saying, this is where we start figuring out stuff, and love is the key to that. That's the bottom line. And it's not, all love and light, but just having love and just accepting, like, I see people like you as my brother, the person down the street, the animals. I actually see them that we're not just brothers, we're actually the same people. And when you've got that type of love, I see what humanity could be and actually are. And sometimes it brings tears to my eyes because I know the potential. But at the same time, this has got to play out how it's got to play out. And to it, love is the key for any plane, any dimension. That's what, if I've got any message, that's it.
Very well put. Very profound stuff, but fascinating and extremely well put, Pete. Let's talk a little bit before we go. We're coming on to the 90-minute mark here, but I want to make sure you have a chance to talk about what you're going to be doing coming up here. That you're moving, and you're going to be involved in a pretty remarkable project. And so, why don't you tell the viewers and listeners a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, there's a few things going on. I've just become a support member for ASOON, Mary Rodwell's Australian. Now I've just gone blank. ASOON, Australian. I can't. I just said it before, but it's ASOON.
That's okay.
I've just got a mind blank, but I'm part of that now. Also, I'm part of. There's a group called a website under the name Free, and it's contactee.com. Now, it stands for the Foundation for Research on extraterrestrial experiences. I think that's what it stands for. Edgar Mitchell's a part of it, Whitley Strieber, Mary Rodwell, Giles Campbell, there's physicist Rudy Shields, lots and lots of people coming together. And what it is, it's going to be like an information hub. Experiences can tell their stories, people can get help. My job there is as a volunteer talking to experiences. If they go there and they want to contact me, they can find whatever details they need. But on top of all that, I'm going to Queensland. We've basically got a place where we're starting the centre, but it's going to evolve on into something much bigger. At the centre, there's going to be a lot of alternative types of healing. There's going to be work. My main thing will be doing contact sessions, or people call CE5, but I'll be doing 2-day workshops on that. I'll be doing meditation teaching. I'll be doing some energy type work. There's going to be lots of fields covered there, like there'll be hypnosis available to be done. So a lot of things are being done, and there's going to be a main part with the children. So there's a lot of star kids coming through, and what I've even noticed is that I felt, weird talking to the older experiences being 30, because my stuff is different from theirs, but it's common. But then I talk to kids 5, 10 years, 15 years younger than me, down to 7, and their stuff's way out there compared to mine, but they're on the ball. They're just smart as hell. And right now, what the key is with a lot of things is listening to these kids, where usually it's the kids that got to listen to the adults. No, these kids have got some information, and they're going to be the teachers. So what we've, I think has got to be done is the kids have to know they're not insane and keep their programming of what they know, rather than be deprogrammed by the education system. Still go to school, do your crap, do whatever you got to do, but don't lose that about you, because that's what's happened to a lot of experiences. They go to school, you're full of crap, you're lying, you're seeing, make-believe friends. Nah, they've got to keep that about them and know who to talk to, and we've got to embrace these kids. So there's going to be that part. It's just going to basically cover, there's, a large amount, I think there's probably 10, 12 of us that are going to be part of this centre. There's going to be a website created soon. It's called the Awakening Centre. It'll be in Agnes Water. And there's a little write-up on my website now for it. But the website's coming now as we speak. So there's not really much like that here in Australia. In America, you've got the ranch, and then other people do sky watches around Sedona and that type of thing. But here we haven't really got much. Lauren Kurth and Kay McCulloch, she's actually the point of contact for Dr. Greer. They do, CE5 type stuff up there. There's some talks and stuff going on, but and Lauren's got the Oz ESETI Centre up there, but nothing where you've got sort of like a team where everyone's expertise or whatever is going to overlap, and it's about helping people, and whoever's right for the job is going to do the job, sort of thing. And no one's going to own it. It's going to be a collective group thing. And that's the thing. What we have to start doing now as a civilization is small groups working as one, getting prepared to actually working on a oneness again. We can't go to a oneness overnight, but we all start practicing that type of thing and working together and throw ego out the window. We're going to start getting there. So that's a big thing there. It's beautiful up there. The weather's always nice, like it's, being 0 degrees down here, and up there I think it's been around 20, because it's 2,000 kilometres from me. It takes 24 hours driving straight to get there.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So it's different environment weather-wise, plants are different.
I didn't realize you were moving so far away. That's a big move.
Yeah,
I didn't realize it was so far.
So all I'm doing is filling up my four-wheel drive, and I'm heading off on Monday. It's Thursday now, so Monday I'm heading up, and a few days rest once I get there.
No, that's great. Worthwhile endeavor, though, Pete. Good luck with that. Seriously.
Thanks a lot.
And, we want to keep in touch with you. We'd love to have you back on because I think there's a lot more.
Documentary too.
I'm sorry?
Great job on Stan Romanek's documentary.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate that. Well, tell people real quick where they could, just to remind them where they can get your books and see your shows, and tell them a little bit about that as well.
If you want to see anything in the books, there's a few docos up, energy and meditation videos, and a page on how to do CE5 yourself or contact work, whatever. Just go to petermaxwellslattery.com. So Slattery's Slattery, and then .com, so petermaxwellslattery.com. I've got Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, so you can connect with me on there. So if you just want to find anything, I answer emails the best that I can, and, you know, if I don't have an answer, I'll let you know I don't have an answer. But if you just want to get in contact or see anything, just go to that website.
Perfect. And also, too, just to know your documentary, the plan is at least to have it on our site as well, correct? We're going to have that available at some point. People will be able to view that on altPOV.tv. And obviously, that's also where you can view Extraordinary, the Stan Romanek story. And I think really when they see it, once they watch both, they're going to see things. It's like, wait a minute, I saw that orb, that same orb in the other one. I mean, that's how similar some of it is, and it's fascinating. And I think that it's worth noting that, because I think that that's where when we really start putting pieces of a puzzle together, as you and I have spoken about, that's an important part of it. And
I think they look at all experiences and find what overlaps.
Right.
There's something there. No one of us has got all the answers, and they're full of crap if they do say it. But you look at it all together, there's weird commonalities, and you're like, geez, you know. And especially Stan being in America and I'm here.
Right.
You know
all those miles away, and you know, we all know that there are people in probably every other country around the world that have been experiencing the same type of things. But I have to say that not that many. And I hope more will come out. But I wanted to tell you that what you're doing by telling your story, and by trying to educate people, and by researching more and interviewing other people, it's very courageous, because it's not an easy thing to do, to put yourself out there like that. So I want you to know that we appreciate it. We appreciate everything that you're doing right now, and your story's not only a fascinating one, but it's an important one. And again, you're courageous for speaking out and for telling people and being honest about what you've experienced. So that can't be understated enough, overstated enough. We appreciate that. So and we also appreciate you coming on tonight. We're gonna wrap this up here now, but again, we'll see you again. We'll definitely, our plan is to continue to be in touch with you, and to delve into other projects, and also to have you on again in the very near future. So keep us updated on once you get out there. We really want to know how that's going. So we'll have you on again, and we'll do it then.
Good, and thank you for having me on, and thank you for being you and doing what you and John are doing too. It's, you know, working behind the scenes like you guys are and doing what you are doing, the more of us that do it, what's going to be done is going to be done. It's just making people think. Right. You know?
That's it. We want to open people's minds and make them wonder and ask questions, and ask, what if this is true? What if the things that Peter are talking about, you know, these things are real, and is part of the universe, and part of our universal consciousness, you know what? And I think when people start thinking that way, you reach a critical mass. And we talked about reaching that critical mass where we can really start to affect positive change in the reality that we live in. And again, I think it starts with love, and it starts with getting back to our source. And I do agree with that. I think that the source is love, for lack of a better.
It is.
I mean, it really is simple, right? So
everybody's actually the answers within them.
Right.
They're looking here for the answers. It's actually within, and if you're quiet enough to perceive your thoughts and where they're coming from, you're going to get some stuff.
Right.
It's just people expect contact or telepathy to be way out there. It's actually everyone's receiving it all the time if they just quiet their mind enough to recognise where their thoughts sometimes come from. It's not theirs sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes it's the higher self, sometimes it's something else interacting. So we're all just as important as each other. Everyone's got to pull their weight. That's what the truth of it is. We're all as important as each other.
So true. Peter, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, and we'll see you soon. And again, just to remind everyone, you will be able to see this show tomorrow night. It will be on altPOV.tv, and just go to the radio, and you will be able to listen to and or view it as a podcast. So again, thank you all for listening, and Peter, thanks again, and good luck, and we will see you soon.
Yeah, cheers, mate.
All right, take care, bud. All right, bye-bye.